Hey everybody, it's Cinnamon Cooney, your Art Sherpa, and we are here for another day of Acrylic April. That is a 30-day painting challenge where we meet every day to do a painting. Now, I have done this several years, and every year I have a different theme. This year's theme is abstract art, so every day we're meeting to do an abstract painting. Other years we're like landscape or flowers or different themes. On the mic is my husband, John.
Hello.
He helps me do this crazy program every year by helping me record these videos and get them edited and get them out to you every day so you can partake in the challenge. If you check the description below, you can see a link to our website. Stuff you see here on the show, it might be available in our store for sale, so check that out if you want to get it there. You don't have to get it there. There is a school that you can jump into that just curates this all into one big list. There's a book that you can get. So there's a lot of resources to help you through. There's this awesome video, which is going to break down step by step into chapters, which is so cool. Timestamps so you can find your way through. Materials and everything that I used, including the brushes, are all in the description below. The description below is a very important space. It's where I hide all the secret cookies.
Yeah.
It's the cookie place. It's got cookies down there. Now, that being said, this awesome abstract painting, I'm going to show you how to do this today. And it is going to be a really cool figurative painting. I'm going to break down how we paint abstract figures. I'm going to give you tips, tricks, techniques, things that you need to know about acrylic painting, everything you need to know about creating this painting. I want to add in the materials I'm about to cover that I used a Posca pen. And that it comes out later, but through the magic of time, Wizard of Space and Time, you can know that I did, but you can use white fluid paint if you don't want to use the paint pen, because choice is important. All right, get your tools that you're going to use, open up that description below, and let's get started. So the materials, as always, this April are an 8x8 surface. Now, my surface is tilted, and I'm going to be doing some weird run drip effects and everything. So I have a paper towel down here to catch that. If you're going to want to get the same effects, you'll need to tilt your canvas up when it's wet, and I'll remind you of that gently. Over here on my palette, I have Mars Black. I have my Lemon Yellow Hansa. Remember, you can use Hansa Yellow Light, cad yellow light, any lemon yellow. You're just looking for a lighter than cad yellow. Phthalo green, phthalo blue, quinacridone magenta, cad yellow medium, the aforementioned warmer yellow. And you can really see them against each other. Cad red medium, and in the middle is a ton of titanium white. So let's throw up step one.
Those are the materials.
Those are the materials. That's what I'm doing.
The first step.
First step for getting into step one. All right, so I'm going to take this little 1-inch Princeton oval mop. It's got kind of that nice oval mop shape, and it's just to sort of wet out my canvas. I'm going to do something we don't normally do. I'm going to wet out my canvas. You're like, wait, what? Are you stretching it? Nope, I'm not re-stretching it.
Moistening it.
And moist. Say it with me now, moist. Such a terrible word.
It needs a Y.
It's a moist word.
Moisture needs a Y. I don't know why it doesn't have one in it, but we'll never know.
We're not going to call it moisty. I think that makes it worse. All right. So when you see that the surface is shiny and wet to the touch, we can start to get a little bit of phthalo blue, and we're going to put this out on the canvas. And you're going to notice that you get some really cool, interesting blooming effects, don't you? And this is sort of fun. We don't play with this a lot in acrylic paint because we're worried always about binding and all that weird kind of stuff. But we're actually not going to be worried about that today. I'm putting it out in, I'd like to think of this as a cow print kind of pattern that you might have.
Like a blueberry cow.
Right, like a blueberry cow. It's kind of a cow print pattern. And I'm just allowing it to bloom into the canvas. The canvas being wet certainly helps me with that. And you can see it definitely travels in the areas where the surface is wet and softens. And I'm just sort of filling in those spaces and allowing that bloom to kind of happen and work itself out. I can come here and add some water if I think an area isn't got enough, and allow that to drip down. Thus the dripping scenario that I've created for myself. It looks pretty good. Now, I don't want to really take it much further than there. And you're like, but there's some canvas showing through.
But that's what makes it, gives it its marbled blueberry cow look.
That's what we were going for, man. And so we're going to be so brave in our hearts, and we're going to dry this. Now, here's the thing with this. If you dry it with a hairdryer while it's super, super wet, that's the shiny wet, it's going to blow the paint and move the pigment. And if you don't want it to move the pigment, then you're going to need to either air dry it, or my mom has made this fabulous suggestion of putting a diffuser like the one you do on your hair on the hairdryer to soften the air. We just can't find one that currently fits my hairdryer. So this is that opportunity for you to decide, am I going to watch paint dry and do my mantra of affirmation? I am a good person. I put good in the world. I'm a person of value. I deserve love. There's a suggested mantra. Or are you going to risk it and dry it? That is up to you. I would tell you that to be dry enough to use a hairdryer, I would give it at least 10 minutes.
You can always err on the side of the cautious cow.
Yes. Air. This is so not a painting about a cow either, but
it's not. But
now
it's
it could it's abstract. It could go.
Who knew?
It could go full moo.
Who knew?
Who moo knew? All right. So don't unsubscribe. We're going to show you what to do next, but we're going to want this to thoroughly dry first. When we come back with the painting thoroughly dry, I'm going to show you what you do next.
We've almost talked long enough for it to dry.
So we're going to put some abstract figures in here, and we're going to do these in a really fun way. I'm going to take my round brush. This is a number 10 Textur round. You can just use any round that you have. And I'm going to come here more on the right-hand side, if this is the halfway point, a bit above the halfway point. And I'm going to make a little bit of a ball shape. And then I'm going to wiggle it down. This sort of little triangle-y shape. It's a very long, wiggled triangle. Do you see it? Kind of bring that down there. And I can drop just a little bit sideline. Another little ball. And a wiggle it down. Be kind of wider with this one. And again, just trying to be loose, as they would say, abstract with it. Another little one here. And maybe a shorter figure, because you know, people come in varieties. Okay. Now, I'm going to look at that, and one of the things that I want to do is maybe lengthen that a bit because of the way I like line to be, the exaggeration of that. And you'll notice that even lengthening it definitely creates a feel, but I'm loose about it, right? Not trying to tell stories, we're just telling loose stories. Now we're going to dry this, and then I'll show you what you're going to do next. So our figures actually aren't going to be black. They're going to be kind of a yellow-orange color with a black underneath. So I'm going to take a little bit of my cad red and my cad yellow, and I'm going to make a very bright yellow-orange That's going to have quite a look with the blue here. I'm going to come in and very expressively and loosely paint the figures with a bit of this. Now I might have more orange. I might pull a little white in so that they have a few different little tones, right? They're similar but different. I'm just painting right over the black. If you're having trouble painting over the black because your paint just isn't covering over the black, what you can do pretty effectively, you know, if you're trying to get that together, is to paint the areas that you're going to want to paint with your orange, white. I'm going to do a couple values with my orange here, so I'm okay, and my paint's really covering it. But if you're having a struggle there, definitely you're going to want to change that. Now I'm going to want to take a little bit of my quinacridone magenta and my titanium white. I'm going to make a bright pink. I'm going to come off from the figures with a little bit of line, and that creates a sense of shadow. I'm kind of joining it in. I want the long, and that kind of gives you a sense then of a shadow that might be happening there. Come in on the inside of that figure and maybe kind of over here. Just a little bit of that. Now we're going to dry it. When we come back, I'm going to show you what you do next. This is fun. So I'm going to get my artist knife out, my diamond head knife, right? So you can see it's shaped a little bit like a diamond. It's got a nice point. And I'm going to mix up some more of that orange, that red orange. It's going to look so nice with the blue. And I'm going to load it. So kind of offloading. I'm going to load it mostly to the toe and on the right hand side. I'm going to come here and very carefully paint in some of that shape or structure of those figures. Isn't that wild?
Yeah, that is.
Now I might come on the left side to the right here. We're just kind of adding that in. That strengthens those up. And kind of come at an angle right there. And that kind of creates a little drama. And then down the figure. And you can see that thick paint really pops the color. Also creates some interest in the figures, I think. You know, and how they feel in this space. I'm going to rinse my knife off. And I'm going to dry everything a little bit so I'm not dragging paint all over the canvas. So I'm going to come in and add some cool, interesting accents and kind of create some more energy and activity here. And I'm going to do that with my number 8 Raphael. I'm going to take a round. I'm going to take my lemon yellow to my phthalo green, and I'm going to make just such a bright green. I might come in and with like a little white kind of pop some of it here and there on those figures. That's sort of interesting, I think. Got a little bit going off. Some spaces. I like that there. Added more yellow and white. I'm going to come around. Now, some of you guys are probably going, but what about underbinding? You did so much water on that background. Are you worried about that? And I can tell you that my feelings underbinding has changed so much over the years based on the research that the paint companies keep coming out with, where they really have determined that these things are not as critical as they originally thought, especially with pro paints, and that with enough drying time, you know, your paint will bind. You still do need to give your paint ample drying time. Adding a little bit there. That's kind of an interesting and exciting little line of color. I'm going to rinse out and go back into my quinacridone. Pull some color in a few places. And that kind of creates interesting weight and thought. I'm going to do a little kind of get back from the surface and kind of push the brush around for an expressive line there. And I'll come back into my yellow. And because it's quinacridone, it's not going to take it out of the orange. And I like that. I feel like that balances some things out there. I'm going to add a lot more yellow. Maybe some white. I'll go ahead and kind of play with these figures a bit. So even though I'm not maybe painting them in the way that you might think of, you would paint a very figurative piece, right? Where you're just painting the anatomy. Doesn't mean that I don't do things that, you know, improve their lighting or their value. And I'm picking this because it really will help me create a sense of self and scale. I'm going to get a little bit of blue here. And add that there, which is definitely sort of dramatic. Maybe a little bit of blue right there on that figure, on that right side. And it's amazing how they're very abstracted. They're definitely very abstracted. But what I have really is quite emotional. I feel like it's emotional.
Yeah, it's definitely
man.
expressive, and you know, it's on a field of blueberry cow.
I sip my coffee. I'll come back and see you guys in the next step. So I'm going to continue adding texture and interest in dimensionality here. I have my number 8 soft acrylic Raphael brush, and I'm going to grab my lemon yellow and a little bit of my yellow and red over here. I'm going to make quite a light color, and I'm going to add some white to it. And I'm going to add those little textural marks that I like so much. I think they create an interesting patterning in the line. Adding a little white and yellow. so that even these spaces here kind of take up some feeling, right? This tells you stuff about our representational painting that's super important. Which is, here we are in a very not objective piece. We kind of know what the topic is because I told you. But, you know, it's a fairly not objective piece. And we're telling this story, but we're making the story better by putting in this effort. So sometimes I see people and they go, I have a really hard time with abstract. I can't do abstract. And when I look at what they're doing, they're expressively painting. They're doing a type of abstract, which is to just emotionally like unhinge on the canvas and just put it all there, like with just expressive strokes and every color that they have, and just until they feel better. And that is a type of abstract, but maybe they're trying to do something with a little more structure, and so they're translating that into, I don't do abstracts well. I'm just adding these little
I can
kind
understand
of
that. Abstracts can
pieces.
be confusing in the brain to
They
do.
are confusing in the brain. I'm adding it over to my yellow, a little more over here. You can see down there the values get deeper with that orange. That's quite profound. I'm by no means done. I'm going to get into my quinacridone again. Kind of mix up a nice, good pink. I might get a little of my orange into it. Did you see me go over there and grab that orange? Yeah. Oh yeah, I did. Tricky, tricky me. And I'm just turning that handle. I'm just using that brush to create these little structure marks. They're like, I think of them as like pebbles or stones. You may have a different mark that you're particularly fond of making. I don't judge it. But we are kind of contrasting the diffused marks with the sharp marks, which I do like. So it's so crazy to do this all like ahead and not know how it's going to work out. Right? And then right now I just had the thought, like, what if I'm the first YouTuber to lose 100,000 subscribers, not for saying something crazy or getting in a big dumb fight, but because nobody likes to do abstract?
I don't think that's the case.
But I think that these are super fun. I'm really liking this, actually. I think down here I'm going to add a lot more white to the marks down here, because I think that will create some contrast. See how that does some dimensionality there?
Yeah.
Pull those different places. A little bit darker. Gonna rinse that out. Look at us go. What an interesting piece. And I really like it. And I'm having a ton of fun with it. Take my yellow over here to my green. I'm going to put a little more green in the mix. This is definitely in what I would call a video game palette for Nintendo.
It's kind of got that you know, late 80s, early 90s kind of.
Yeah, we've got some color happening here.
Color to it.
Right, for not using neons. right? We're not using neons, or we're not leaning into that kind of paint to get our result by any means. Nope, I moved on, John. I went up top. Sorry, babe. I'm just putting it up here. I think it's fun to layer this crazy color combo, which hopefully the color classes helped you kind of figure out how we're getting to these colors, and you know why I would choose these in the way that they worked with each other. So I'm being pretty thoughtful here.
I like it. I like how you're just using the different angles of the brush to make the little marks.
Could do a knife, but I think this brush does an interesting thing. A lot of ways you could make marks. Your marks are as valid as my marks, my friend. That was interesting, that dark shadowy green. Yeah. Actually, I might go the opposite way. Looking at that. Wait. I have an idea. That was sort of interesting. I'm going to go way into my yellow. And I'm just moving the brush to keep from making like, trying to give it that sense of light. I think I'm gonna need to dry it and come back, and I've got just a couple finishing touches, I think. Let's dry it and come back. All right, so I have my handy dandy Posca 3M white pen out. I am going to do some lining here and some work to create some interest with line around the piece. If you don't have a Posca pen and you don't have a paint pen, you could do a jelly roll pen. You could just use white paint and a detail brush to get a similar effect. I'm going to make little lines that get wider as they go forward from these figures up the pink. I'm doing that because that texture does create an interest, and I'm going to add some lining around my figures as well, because I think that's going to create some interest. Maybe a little scribble. Again, a little scribble creates interest. I love it. I'm going to be honest, I love it.
I think it's pretty awesome.
Going to add little, yes, I'm going to add little white lines around some of these little pebbly shapes. Again, you could do this with your detail brush. This is just a way to exaggerate some of those choices that I made. And I am choosing those little pink shapes that I did. And can you see how that also creates almost like an implied line or energy or motion into that piece? I'm not wanting to take away the softness over here. This is like playing with light to me. These won't have any color in them. They'll just be texture and form. I dig that wholeheartedly. Every line that we make on a painting
just changes the conversation a little bit.
That is exactly the correct wording for that. It changes the conversation. We start out in a painting having one conversation with ourselves or with our viewer. And then as we go, we find ourselves in a whole other conversation. Every line, every mark, every color, every expression of value, making itself part of the work.
That's really cool.
Right? Making it part of what the piece becomes to be about. And yeah, you can take it too far. Sometimes you do iterative abstract work because you'll be in a piece and you kind of get into a groove and you're like, I took it too far. And then sometimes you'll be like, you'll look at it and you'll grab a piece that you thought was done back out of off the wall actually. And just be like, I've signed you, I've photographed you, I've shared you on social media, but I am not done with you, sir. Or ma'am, depending on your painting. Right?
You have some things to say about it.
I have some things to say about it. And so I may still have to get in there and talk about the way that those things are impacting the work and changing it. So it seems like I'm doing word salad. I'm not doing word salad. It really is like that. And so when you're in your abstract paintings, don't mean to be loud there. When you're in your abstract paintings, let's look at this overhead. I think we're there. When you're in your abstract paintings, when you're in your abstract works, you will find yourself exploring an idea in repetition. Now, this month is just crazy in that I'm letting you dip your toe into most of the not messy abstracts. We're not doing paint pouring, well covered style out there. I'm just going to tell you, don't use a torch in your paint pouring. If you're using acrylic paint,
No fire.
No, you don't want to superheat the paint. And there's a bunch of reasons. If you don't believe me, ask if you should Golden Artist Colors, and they will give you the research that they have on that right now and all the chemicals that can be released. Think of the train. There's a lot of chemicals that get heated when these types of plastics are set on fire that you just don't want in the air, and they float in the air. It's a whole thing. So do all the paint pouring things, have all the fun, maybe just allow things to dry. You're not doing resin, so you don't really need the torch. Well covered, amazing stuff, and splatter well covered. But we're just not set up. I'm at my mom's house. I can't just make a giant mess here. So not that she wouldn't let me.
Messy.
She would let me, but I can't. So that's why we're not covering that. But we are getting into it. And normally you would spend a week or a period of time with an idea like this and play with the color and the composition and all that. We may come back to visit ideas again and again in similar styles. I'm hoping you're loving this month. For those of you guys who have been waiting for abstract, I know you are. I know there's at least some of you who are like, I'm subbed forever. She stopped painting stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. And some of you are going to be like, I still love you in spite of the abstract. You have to let me know where you're at. I want to know. Shall we make it big and tell them what they do next? So I'm going to sign with my Posca pen one of the, again, abstracts that are in any way figurative, I think are a little easier to sign. An art tip I got from somebody who verifies if art is authentic or not is that you can sign with anything, but if you sign with a material or media you used in a painting, it helps them later verify or authenticate your work in its provenance. So that's why I'm not like, do a whole painting in one media and then sign with Posca sometimes, right?
That makes sense.
So I like to come in and sign with what I used. You like that idea?
I do.
Okay, so what are we doing this month? We're doing this like every day until we're out of paintings to do every day of abstracts. I will finally have like a very substantial abstract playlist. I've got a few, but now I'm going to have a lot. Check the description below. Links to our website. Check out the store. You can find the materials that you see here in the show at the store. Check out the school. It curates all of this into an easier to navigate content. And that should be good. Check out the book. Because, hey, who doesn't like a step-by-step book with written instructions that match everything? You know, we've got a lot of resources, or don't worry about any of it because the traceables in these lessons are free and you don't have to do any of that. You can just be like, you know, I'm stretching my own canvas, I'm making my own paint, and I'm not going to do any of that. And you know what I say? I still love you, and that's completely okay. I'm not on here to make you go places or do things. Though I would like you to do the human things. Remember to subscribe, and you remember to comment and like the video, and tell your friends this cool program is going on so that they also do it. Be sure and share your painting in the Acrylic April group so we can all see your journey. I think this year is going to be very, very interesting. I will be traveling a bit while we're doing it, so I will be in group a lot talking to everybody. and I'll remember how I felt through my own process. My April that's not April. What's the most important thing you can do though right now? You can be good to yourself and you can be good to each other, and I want to see you at an easel really soon. Bye-bye.